Technical Tip Tuesday. It is your final tip of the month. Crazy to see how fast it's flown by. Our friends at AG Pro Training are sponsoring this month's tips. We're joined again by Alexandra Gualtieri, owner of AG Pro Training. Welcome back, Alexandra.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming back on. Again, we've had such an amazing month of tips so far. And this one I think is a huge one because culture is at the front and center of businesses right now, right? We're trying to retain, not have turnover, but culture fits in with learning and really getting your team to go and train and have buy-in. So, how can restoration companies build a true learning culture and measure the ROI, which I know is really big in this industry, of their training to demonstrate its impact on their safety, productivity, retention, and of course, their profitability?
Absolutely. Um, so every restoration company, excuse me, has a culture. The question isn't whether you have one, it's whether your culture encourages people to keep learning or simply keep doing things the way they've always been done. A learning culture isn't built by just sending people to class. If learning happens only when a certification expires, it's not part of the culture. The companies that excel make development an ongoing expectation, not just an occasional event. So, when we talk about building a learning culture, we're really talking about leadership. Employees pay attention to what their leaders consistently value, reward, and model. So, that's the first point here is that leaders have to model learning. If your leaders stop learning, eventually the organization will too. Some folks think, well, I'm a manager now. I don't have to go to class. But learning shouldn't stop when someone gets promoted. Leadership's another skill that requires continuous development. And this is where culture begins. Owners continue learning, managers continue attending training, and they share the lessons that they learned, whether it's in class or even just from reading business books. You, as a leader, should continue to ask questions and be curious. Point number two is to make learning part of everyday work. The strongest learning cultures don't separate training from work. They make it part of the work. Culture just, it's not built in classrooms. It's built Monday mornings, right? With toolbox talks or tech tips or weekly discussions, job debriefs, mentoring, having the team share their wins, but also to share their mistakes. Make it part of your everyday operation and conversations. And the third point is to celebrate growth, not just certifications. We see this a lot on, LinkedIn and stuff, and companies celebrating that their technicians passed WRT or got a new certification, which is great, but then nothing. They don't celebrate anything else. And I'm not just talking about social, but internally. The certificate, of course, is important because it represents a milestone, but what you really want to try to recognize is how your employees are applying those skills to serve customers, to support teammates, to improve the quality of their work. So this could be celebrating new skills or overall improvement, celebrating promotions, or just kudos to someone for taking initiative or solving problems. You can do this in an internal company newsletter or in a weekly meeting. The next point is measuring ROI beyond the certifications. Instead of just saying, hey, a certain percentage or all my guys passed their WRT or excuse me, their WRT exam, look at things like job quality, documentation. Are your people more confident? Are you onboarding team members faster? Are you retaining people better? Overall customer satisfaction improvement, fewer callbacks, reduced rework. Companies either invest in learning now or you're going to pay for those gaps later. 6 months after training, what's different? Are employees solving problems independently? Are your customers happier? Are supervisors spending less time correcting mistakes? All of that is ROI. The last point I'll make is that learning creates opportunity. And this is something that we often forget, but learning is part of career growth. It's part of retention. It's part of future leaders. It's part of better recruiting and succession planning. If you'd ever like to get off the truck, you need to train your team. One of the strongest retention tools that a company has is showing employees that there's a future for them. A learning culture tells people that we're invested in your growth, and that's a huge value that separates you from your competition. So if you want to hold on to good people, show them that you're invested in their success. Over the years, we've learned that every company accumulates kind of one of two things, either training momentum or training debt. Training momentum is built when a company consistently invests in their people to build that confidence and consistency in future leaders. But every time you skip training or postpone development or don't reinforce what people learned, you create a little bit of training debt. And it doesn't show up immediately, but over time, it leads to inconsistent work and more mistakes and lower confidence and a harder time retaining employees. So, in closing, at the end of the day, leaders build a learning culture by making growth part of everyday work. It's not just something that happens in a classroom every few years. And the return on your investment isn't measured by how many certificates are hanging on the wall. It's measured by stronger employees, happier customers, fewer mistakes, and a business that is better prepared for the future.
Yeah, I would definitely say you shared so much information there. And I think a lot of times we
Wow.
get hung up on ROI. Like, I think that's the thing, but there's variables that contribute to the ROI. And those variables are what you touched on, right? There has to always be an initiative around every single aspect of what you're doing. It cannot just be, hey, go do this. And then to your point, we celebrate that our technicians pass, and then there's nothing else in between, right? That's really big because that also creates a culture of, hey, are we appreciated and are they bought into the success of our career? Or is it just kind of checking off boxes, if you will, which does feed into ROI. People are passionate about their job, right? Which means they're going to do a little bit more work or work a little harder than they probably would if they didn't feel like they were invested in. And so I think when we hear the term ROI, we think that there's always something monetary that you can visually see, but that monetary can come later when you're processing claims faster, when you're helping more customers. Those are different from seeing the quote unquote money right off the bat, right? And so everything is measurable. You just have to know how to measure it, I guess, is what we really get down to at the end of the day, right?
It's that expression. I don't know if you ever heard two business leaders talking, and one of them says, "Well, what if we train our people and they leave?" And the other one says, "Well, what if we don't train them and they stay?"
Mhm. Yeah. That's
Good
so
points.
powerful and it's so
Yes.
true, right? Because, we know people are going to move on. We're not going to be able to keep everybody, but it would be a disservice to your business, but also to your staff if you did not invest the time and money into them, to your point. So,
Absolutely.
Alexandra, oh my gosh, what a great series. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all this information with our industry. It's much needed, especially being halfway through the year and people really questioning things and trying to figure out where they need to send their staff. And I think you provided a roadmap. You provided the importance of understanding why you should be sending your team to training, but they have variables that they have to understand and also implementing into your business with your own initiatives, even as a business owner or a PM, right? You mentioned those things that just because you're not a technician anymore doesn't mean training ever stops. And most importantly, the culture piece and the ROI. I know those are two big things right now in the industry, and you touched both of them. So thank you so much to you and your team at AG Pro Training for sponsoring this month's tips. And for all of you watching, we'll see you next month. Take care.